Hi, I'm Greg. I'm a technical trainer at Decisions, and this is a short video all about conditional rule sets in Decisions. So a conditional rule set is a grouping of rules or flows that work together for complex data evaluation. A rule set evaluates the same input and its output generates a lot of information. This is compared to simple rules that generate a true-false path or single outcomes. The output of a rule set lets you grab names of certain rules, the execution time, or even exception details if there are any. It can still output true or false paths if that's what you need, or you can set actions as outcomes like adding a tag to the input or triggering a flow. A conditional rule set provides the ability to create rule sets within a rule set. You can see in the image on the left that the markets rule set has 3 rules to be evaluated: local, domestic, and international. Each of these rules has its own conditions. For example, the domestic market, seen on the image on the right, has one condition titled Determine Consumable Asset. If the domestic market rule evaluates true for Georgia or Maine, then those markets or rules will run and any conditions that they may have will be evaluated too. A conditional rule set can use any combination of rules and flows. The same input data is available across all of the rules and flows, and no additional inputs need to be created or mapped. This type of rule set is really useful for staying organized, especially when your desired inputs and outputs are the same across many rules and flows. So these 3 images illustrate how a conditional rule set is different or unique from other rule sets because the designer user can set which condition needs to be true for the other rules to run. You can see in the top image how the domestic rule has one condition titled Determine Consumable Asset, and 2 rule subsets for Georgia and Maine. If the Georgia rule runs true, you can see in the middle image that it has 2 conditions: tagging Georgia assets and tagging fruit and non-fruit assets. So if the Georgia rule runs true, those conditions will run and evaluate those Georgia assets. Let's say that the Georgia rule ran false, but the Maine rule ran true. Then the condition for Maine would run, tagging Maine assets. So you can see that set control denotes the condition that needs to be true in order to run the other rules or conditions. So to create a conditional rule set, a designer user would select Create Rule in their studio. Then on the left menu, they would select Rule Set. Then after naming the rule set, they would click Create and then work on the configuration. This shows the configuration. You could choose between logical, setup, data return, or scoring the output. You could choose how to run the rule set and also the type. Today, we're focusing on conditional rule set types. Finally, you can view and manage the rule set that you've created in the Designer Studio. Now I'm going to walk through an example of creating and testing a conditional rule set. So here we are in the Designer Studio. I'm working in my test project, and I look at the top menu and see Create Rule. Click on that, and then I look on the left hand menu and I see Rule Set. I'll click on that and then Rule Set. I'll name it Test Conditional Rule Set and Create. So this is what it looks like. You can set up your input here, and then you can start adding rules right here. What this looks like after you set it up is this. We have the markets rule set, which I referred to earlier in the video. We have the asset FS input. And then remember, the markets rule set has three markets: local, domestic, and international. And each of those markets has its own conditions and rule sets. So we have local market with this condition here. It is set control, so if this runs true, then this condition will run. The domestic market, if that runs true, then its condition will run, and its subset, its sub rule set will run, which are the Georgia and Maine markets. So if domestic market is true, Georgia will run with its conditions, and Maine will run with its conditions, one of which is a truth table. If the international market is true, then the France and Japan rules will run. So what does this look like when it runs? Let's debug and find out. I've already set up this example test. Let's look at the input. We have an asset name of pecan. Its tag is Georgia pecan. Its type is fruit, consumable from the Georgia market, and some other data like money value, quantity, total value, and weight. So let's run it, and you can see the markets rule set. First, it goes to the domestic market rules. It is set control, so if this runs true, then its condition will run next. And that's what happened, because Georgia was the input, and so it is domestic, and therefore its condition runs. The input was pecan, and that ran true also because pecan is in this list of consumables. Because the domestic market was true, then the Georgia rules and the Maine rules ran. So the Georgia rules included these conditions: the assets GCA, GNCA conditions, and tagging fruit and non-fruit assets. Then Maine ran, and we see that it ran false because we know it's from Georgia. And then the last two markets ran. They ran false because we know that it's from Georgia. You can see there. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something about rule sets. Stay tuned because there are more to come.